welcome. It's my job to very quickly, and spending a little bit of time, welcoming you all here. Thank you for coming. Our congressman is here, and he is the reason that you came, so I'll only take a moment to just thank you for coming, welcoming you, and I want to introduce Carl Harris. He's a retired pastor here in Loris, and he's going to bless this event and pray for our country and our congressman. Thank you. Thank you.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for every expression of your love to us. We thank you for open doors that let us come into the events of our country and to participate in talking to our leaders and talking with our leaders and working with our leaders. That's why we're here today, to offer comments and hear from him and make decisions, dear God, that will affect us on down through the years. We pray that you will be with us, because without you, dear God, nothing matters. I just pray that you won't take your hands off this country, that you just won't leave us to our own devices, but that you'll interfere in our lives, that you'll guide our congressmen and senators and all those who make the laws of this land, who lead us day by day. But we need your presence more than we need anybody else's presence. So bless this room today, hallow it with your own Holy Spirit. May we know you here, feel you here, and may we understand that this country of ours is a great gift. Help us to use it wisely and to pass it on to generations ahead of us in good shape. In Christ's name, amen. Amen.
First of all, it's indeed a pleasure to welcome each of y'all here to get a chance to talk to our congressman. And we appreciate, Congressman Rice, the fact that you're taking time to come back home here in Horry County to share with, earlier this morning, Aner, and now with Loris today, to hear from our folks that live and breathe every day in our district. And we want to thank especially, too, we've got a lot of out-of-town guests that are here, our county council chairman, our sheriff. We've got 2 of our county council representatives here. All those, we appreciate y'all coming and joining with us today. But I wanted to share just a couple of things, and I feel like this crowd really knows Tom Rice pretty good, because we've followed you. You're part of us. You're part of Horry County. And that's special. He served as chairman of county council prior to being elected to the 7th district for the 113th Congress. But I wanted to share a couple of committees that he serves on in Congress, and I want you to listen how relevant it is to issues back here in Horry County and the PD region, all that makes up the 7th Congressional District. He serves on the House Committees for the Small Business Subcommittee on Economic Growth, Tax, and Capital Access. He's a member of the Bipartisan Congressional Caucus on Steel, Caucus, CPA Caucus, Travel and Tourism, Voting Caucus, the Northern Border. Congressman Rice is a lawyer, and he's a CPA emeritus. As we said just a minute ago, he served our county admirably in working very hard with industrial recruitment and job recruitment for our district. He continues that after going to Washington, but he and his wife are very proud parents of 3 children, and they reside in Myrtle Beach, so they're one of our next door neighbors. He has been working on such issues that are pertinent to us, like the Georgetown Port, the Charleston Port, the I-73, the extension of the Carolina Bays, the Parkway. Things that will mean a lot to the future of our county, to the 7th Congressional District, things that will help bring jobs to our area, to make this a better economy, to help all people. So without taking a lot more information and time away from hearing from the man that makes the difference in our county and in our state and in our nation, we would like to show Congressman Rice how much we appreciate the fact that he's taken time to be here in Loris, to hear from the Loris citizens here in Horry County and to hear a lot about what he's trying to accomplish and the projects that he's pushing to help not only our state, but truly the entire United States. So join me a round of applause for our Congressman, our friend Tom Rice.
I normally don't like to stand behind podiums and use microphones, but my voice, I had laryngitis. I couldn't speak at all a couple of days ago, so I'm going to use this thing today. First of all, I want to thank Harold Suggs, who called my office a few weeks ago and said, how about if we pull something together in Loris? And to the mayor for that kind introduction and for helping to pull all this together and allowing me to be here today. I want to tell you, Horry County has been mighty good to me. Of course, I've lived here since I was 5 years old. But Loris and Ainer in particular have stood beside me from the very beginning. I decided to get into politics. And I've tried to work hard to make sure that that came back, and I hope y'all feel the same way. I want to recognize a couple people in the audience, and I should recognize about everybody here because I look around and see so many friends. But I want to recognize my good friend Paul Prince. Paul and my good friend Jody Prince here on the county council when I got on there and brand new to politics and had my own ideas. And they had their own ideas, and we worked together and we pulled together some things that I think have really affected this county and continue to affect this county. I think the jobs initiative we started and is carrying through is making a huge difference. And I couldn't have done it without these two guys. These two guys, I'm telling you, they care about this place and they work very hard for y'all every single day. There's another guy here that I'm going to give the microphone to for a couple of minutes. He's a good friend I've known for decades, Mark Lazarus. And Mark had been on county council before I ever ran. And he was one of the first people I called when I decided I was running for chairman. It took a little bit of talking before I convinced him that I was the man for the job. But he has been there for me. And when he decided to run, I knew he was the right idea for Horry County. And I think he's doing a great job of following through with his EDC and with other issues for the county. And, you know, these job announcements come along. They're such a great thing. And I think he deserves a round of applause. And I want to turn the microphone.
Thank you, Congressman. My voice is working fine today, so I appreciate that. But maybe I told him earlier, he was so kind to me, maybe I ought to go ahead and announce my re-election campaign. I guess we'll get a little help here. But, you know, Congressman Rice is just doing a fantastic job for us in Congress, and he really laid a lot of groundwork for me. It made it easy for me. And serving on council before, I understood, you know, how things kind of work, but working with Paul Prince again, as we have in the past, and getting to know Jody Prince, and we've been working on a lot of great things, and we're working hard. I'm not really sure what you said about them is true, but we'll keep them true. They are. We got a lot of great things happening in Horry County, and you know, we're going to need a lot of federal help as we go through a lot of the things that we do with roads. You'll hear about I-73 today and other things that we're working on. We got some great announcements. We just announced 600 jobs, call center that's going to be located in the Carolina Forest area. We've got PTR that just is going to be opening up very soon over here in the Cool Springs area. Hopefully we'll have another announcement for another gun manufacturer opening up over there also. Shortly, promise you, very shortly, we're going to have a great announcement for here in Loris in your industrial park right over here that I believe we're about to firm up. A great company that's going to come here that you'll be very proud of too. Create a lot of good jobs. So we're working very hard on that. When Congressman Rice, first thing he said to me when I decided I was going to run for his seat is he says, "Don't you mess with my EDC." I hope I'm doing a good job doing that. I want to thank all of y'all so much for your support through the campaign and for allowing me to serve as your chairman. And we continue hopefully to do some great things. Not just for Loris, but for the entire county. And Mayor, thank you for having us here today. Thank you all very much.
So there's a lot of good things happening. I tell you, I hadn't really been in the political realm very long, but I really can't remember a time when the county has been more united. I think that there are a lot of positive things going on. As you know, I don't just represent Horry County anymore. I represent the 7th District. I have 8 counties. I have Georgetown, Horry, Marionville, and Florence, Arlington, Chesterfield, and Marlboro. A lot of varying interests, a lot of varying industry. Horry County needs jobs really badly, but as badly as Horry County needs it, Marion County is a lot worse. Marion County, #1 unemployment in the state, 15.5%. Marlboro County, #3 in the state, 14.5%. Dillon County, #7 in the state, around 13%. So, I've got a lot of work to do. With respect to what I've been doing in Washington, before I go there, I want to introduce other staff members I got in the room here too. This guy in the back here, Andrew Mills. He's got the biker haircut and the biker. He is the Myrtle Beach District Director. I have 2 offices, one in Myrtle Beach and one in Florence. And then we do roving around the county and around all the counties monthly. There are 4 people in our Myrtle Beach office and 3 in Florence, I believe. And we handle constituent service there. And let me tell you, as good as I think I am, I think he's better. Tell him what you've done this year, Andrew.
Well, between our 2 offices, we have resolved just under 1,000 cases, and I would say probably about 75% of those are for our veteran population and for our people on Social Security. We also cover things like simpler things like passports for people or helping people with IRS issues. But yeah, we've helped just under 1,000 families resolve any kind of federal issue. So if there's anything we can do for anyone in our district, please call one of our offices and we will do everything we can to assist you.
And I've heard nothing but compliments from him. These guys do an amazing job. I also have Susan Dean. Susan, if you'll. Susan works in our office as well, does a great job with customer service. People come in, they don't come to us unless they got a problem. And oftentimes it's a very, very fundamental and difficult problem. And they do a great job of working those things out. If anybody's got a pen and paper handy and you want our office number, what is it, Andrew?
Our Myrtle Beach office number is 843-445-6459.
And our Florence number?
And just in case anyone would want that one, it's 843-679-9781.
Also, one other thing I want to say before I forget about it. I have a newsletter. We have a website for a congressional website. It's www.rice.house.gov. And if you want to know what I'm working on at any time, want to see anything about something I've done or a committee or anything, you can go to that website. And also we have a newsletter we send out at least once a week. And the lady who writes it, I have a press person up there, does a great job of keeping people abreast of exactly what we're working on and what's going on in Washington. If you go to the website, www.rice.house.gov, you can sign up for that. Okay, now just to talk about what I've done in Washington. It's finishing my first year. When I was elected on Tuesday, the first Tuesday in November last year, I was in Washington the following Monday, even though I didn't take office until January the 3rd or something like that. And I went up there to meet with leadership and to talk to them about what my experience was as a tax lawyer, CPA, and how I thought they could use my experience to help the country and to help this district. And I think they've treated me very, very well. They put me on the budget committee with Paul Ryan, which is a great place for me to be as a tax lawyer CPA. In April, the House Budget Committee passed a budget that would balance in 10 years with no tax increases. And we also, in February or March, the House passed a no budget, no pay bill, because the Senate hadn't passed the bill in 4 or 5 years. And we were able to shame the Senate into passing their first budget. But, there's a but there. Of course, their budget came back. They had $1 trillion in tax increases over 10 years, and it never balanced. Ours was no tax increases, and it balanced in 10 years. But once their budget came back and our budget came back, then you go to, the House has a version, the Senate has a version, you go to what they call a conference committee, and you work it out. You negotiate it, and you find a way to work it out. Well, it was the Republicans, not the Democrats, that didn't want to go to the committee. And that really disappointed me. Why they did that, I still don't understand. But we didn't go to committee for 6 months, and then as a product coming out of the shutdown, one of the things that they agreed to do was actually go to a conference committee, which is the result of which is this budget agreement that came out last week. First time the government's had a budget. Of course, the Senate hasn't passed it yet, but I think they will. First time the government will have had a budget in 3 years. Now, moving on to the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, great way to help this district. I'm on the Port Subcommittee and on the Highway Subcommittee. One of the early things I did was I brought the chairman of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee here. I brought him to the Georgetown Port, the Charleston Port, then the Georgetown Port, and then put him in a helicopter and flew him up and down I-74. Because I said when I was running, and I still believe, that the most important thing, I said when I was running for chairman of county council, and I said when I was in Congress, and I still believe, the most important thing is jobs. If we can get people to work, we solve a lot of problems. We solve a lot of economic problems. We solve a lot of deficit problems. We solve a lot of crime problems. We solve a lot of drug problems. We solve a lot of problems. And I believe the pathway to jobs is infrastructure. And I believe this district has been overlooked for infrastructure for decades. I think that, most of the infrastructure investment in the state has gone to up and down the I-26 corridor. But, saying that, the Charleston Port is very important to the entire state. 1 in 5 families in the state rely on the Charleston Port. International paper in Georgetown in this district relies on the Charleston Port. Met Class in Conway relies on the Charleston Port. Nucor Steel in Darlington relies on the Charleston Port. Sunoco in Hartsville relies on the Charleston Port. Domtar Paper in Bennettsville relies on the Charleston Port. And countless other businesses that I'm not naming. It's not hundreds of jobs in this district. It's tens of thousands of jobs in this district rely on that port. So I took him to the Charleston Port, I took him to the Georgetown Port, and I took him and flew him up and down I-73. We just did what they call a WRDA bill, a water resources bill, to improve the ports in the country. And ports are absolutely vital to American competitiveness. We're not competing for jobs with, we're competing worldwide, not just with people here in this country. We're competing with people in China, we're competing with people in Australia, we're competing with people in Korea, and everywhere else. And they're digging out the Panama Canal right now. And the Panama Canal is going to take ships that are very much larger, can hold 50% more cargo. And those are called post-Panamax ships, that's what they call them. And it's going to drive down the cost of transportation for anybody that can use those ships. So, where right now it costs $3,000 for international paper to ship a load of whatever to China in one of those containers, if they can put it on a post-Panamax ship, it'll cost $2,300. So that if you can't use those ships, if our people here in South Carolina and in the Southeast can't access those ships, then in the competition with the people in Korea, we start out $700 a container behind. It's not hard to understand. It's really pretty straightforward. There's two ports on the Southeast right now that can take those ships. Norfolk and Baltimore. 2. Charleston can take them on 2 hours at high tide. That's the only one in the Southeast. Scariest thing I heard in Congress. I was in a port subcommittee meeting in like February, and the head of the Florida port system was in there. And they're trying to get federal permission to use their Florida's own money to dig out, to deepen the Port Everglades port in Miami. And they had already come, they have to get congressional authorization to spend their own money. They'd already come one time before, but it had taken so long to get the federal environmental permits that the money wasn't enough anymore. So they had to come back and get reauthorized. And I asked the guy, I said, when did you start working on this? He said, 1998. How many ports do you think have been dug around the world since 1998? And we're not going to have a port this side of Baltimore that's going to be able to take those post-Panamax ships because our federal bureaucracy is so convoluted. So, Charleston Port, very high importance for this entire state. As a result of having Chairman Schuster here, showing him the Georgetown port and arguing for small ports, Georgetown is never going to be a Charleston, it's never going to be a container port, it's a bulk port, but it's a fairly low cost to get that port into. When it came out, the Word bill had provisions for small ports to compete for harbor maintenance funds. They hadn't been able to do that in the past. Georgetown was in a quandary because to compete for harbor maintenance funds, you have to have 1 million tons of cargo a year, and they used to have that. But when the steel mill closed temporarily, they dropped below 1 million tons. When it opened back up, the port had silted in, they were below 1 million tons, but they couldn't get the cargo. I mean, they couldn't get the funds to deepen it, and they didn't have the cargo because they didn't have the port wasn't deep enough. They were in a catch-22. So we got the Word bill to where small ports can compete for harbor maintenance funds. We'll have to go to the Army Corps and make our case. It's not an earmark. We have to prove our merit, but I don't think that's going to be very difficult. Interestingly, even though we had language for Georgetown in the Word bill, there was nothing in there for Charleston because Charleston doesn't have their permit. And they won't have it until the end of next year at the earliest. And the chairman didn't want to put language in there for ports that weren't yet permitted. He said, we'll do another Word bill in 2 years, and then you can argue about Charleston. And I said, well, what if we don't, the last time we did one was 7 years ago. What if we don't do one for another 7 years? South Carolina, the Southeast can't wait for that. So we went back and forth and we agreed on language that would allow people who don't yet have their permit, and if they get a permit before the next Word bill, they can proceed with their own money. South Carolina can proceed to dig out the Charleston Port. They've already said it. South Carolina's already set aside $200 million to dig out the Charleston Port. And then they can go back and ask for federal reimbursement. Not guaranteed, but they can ask for it. So, we were successful in getting that language inserted in the bill. Very, very proud of our accomplishments on the Word bill. Now, I was on the House, I'm on the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, which the Word bill came through. The Senate has passed their own version. We have to go to conference. I had asked to be on the conference committee to negotiate with the House and the Senate on the budget. They wouldn't put me on that, but they did put me on the water resources bill, which is unusual for a freshman. So I'm one of the conferees who's negotiating with the Senate on terms of the Word bill. Very, very proud of what we've been able to accomplish here in the district and for South Carolina. Now, with respect to I-73, we have a highway bill coming out this spring. I haven't started yet working on it. I-73 was named a corridor of national significance in 1992. I promise you they're going to hear that a lot. And we'll see if, and we'll have to stack it up against other projects. And we'll have to show its merit, but I think it has a lot of merit. I think it has more potential for this district than anything else does in terms of being funded. Interesting sideline story on a local level. When I got to office, one of the first things I did was I called the Corps of Engineers. And I said, I want to meet with you in Georgetown. So I rode down there, and Chris Eldridge from the county Mark was an officer, and Steve Gosnell, and me and a couple of members of my staff went down and visited with 3 or 4 members of our recording engineers. And you know, we have this RIDE program here in Warren County. It's got sales tax money, funds like 25 or 30 projects. How many projects, Paul, you know better than me?
Well, we have 100 miles of dirt roads in about.
I call him Doug because he always talks about dirt roads for y'all.
And about 13 other projects that are much larger projects.
But you can't go down to the lower projects because you have to do the top ones first, right?
Right.
And there's a project that had been held up the whole time I was on county council, 31 and 707. The reason it got held up was because they were going to build 31 all the way to business 17, bypass 17, but they decided that it would be better to back it up to 707. They were 4-lane. So they built a couple miles less road, but they expanded the intersection a little bit. And when they did that, the Coastal Conservation League came in and said, well, you're damaging too many wetlands around that intersection. They were ignoring the fact that we weren't building 2 more miles of road, okay? They said, we want you to go back and get that resurveyed. And by the way, when you built the old part of 31, 9 years ago, we think you damaged a couple acres more wetlands than you thought. So we want you to go back get that resurveyed, and we'll see you in a couple of years. Okay, that happened right when I became chairman of county council, and it held it up for a year. So when I went to meet with the Army Corps, I said, I want to talk to you about 31707, I want to talk to you about the Georgetown Port, and I want to talk to you about I-74. They said, okay, on 31 and 707, you know, we're largely through that, but, you know, we still got a lot of work to do, and, you know, we got to make these people happy, and it could be a year and a half, 2 years. Where do you get your permit? I said, okay, what about I-73? They said, oh, well, we're just really getting started with a big project. That could be 5, 6 years. I said, okay, what about the Georgetown Port? They said, well, you had your permit for that to the depth. You used to be at that depth. All you got to do is find some money. I said, okay, that one's on me. I said, now let's go back to these road projects. I want y'all to do a checklist of everything that needs to be done to get the permit. And then I want to meet with y'all every month. And I want to see what progress we've made on that checklist. I had the permit for 31 and 707 in April. And I'm getting DNR signed off on my I-73 permit a couple of weeks ago. And I hope to have the permit for I-73 in the next couple of months. So all it takes is a little bit of, you know, watching and holding people accountable. Now, moving on to the Small Business Committee, I'm on the Small Business Committee, and they made me the chairman of the subcommittee. And I love it. It's the Economic Development, Taxation, and Access to Capital Markets subcommittee. And as you've already heard me say 3 times, I've been standing up here. The most important thing to me is jobs. Because I think the most important thing to you is jobs. Because that's what I hear from you all the time. And to be chairman of that Economic Development Subcommittee has been a great honor. I get to pick my topics. I've had hearings on everything from the effect of Obamacare on small business to the effect of this new Dodd-Frank banking law on small business, to work visas, to a multitude of topics. I will be bringing Congress to this district. I will be having a hearing for the Small Business Committee, my subcommittee, in Dillon next month. I represent the whole district, so it's going to be in Dillon, and we're going to talk about economic development in rural areas. And we're going to have experts from around the country and from the Department of Commerce there to talk about how we can help. On a local level, I believe that I need to have a relationship with all of the political figures here. Just like I do with him, and him, and him, and him. There should be some hers in here.
I'll step in.
Because I think that's how you get things done. You know, that's what the Bible said. The Pharisee said, what's most important to man is to love God. And the second was like unto it, love your neighbor. It's all about relationships and collaboration. That's the way you make things work. And so I've had a mayor's conference in Mullins 3 or 4 months ago. How many people came, Robin?
We had better, close to 70-some folks in that meeting.
And I can't believe I didn't believe this. You weren't here when this morning. Y'all, this is Rodney Berry.
How are you?
Come here, Rodney. I want to give you the microphone for a second. Rodney Berry was the mayor of Marion, and he was the chairman of the Marion County Economic Development Corporation, and he has worked with the State Department of Commerce extensively. He's worked with NISA extensively. And I needed an economic developer. I told y'all when I was running I was going to hire an economic developer for my staff. Rocky there. Just a couple of things you've been working on.
Okay, sure. And what a privilege it is to work for Congressman Rice. You hear so much lip service today. I've witnessed this man walk the walk. There's never been more excitement in all this district than I'm witnessing right now. And that's true because a lot of our communities have relationships with NISA, which is a great group, also with the State Commerce Department. But they've never witnessed the federal impact. And all our counties throughout the entire district are seeing what that will do for them. I call, as busy as it is, I call him when we've got a prospect on the line. He drops what he does and he calls that prospect. And that's unheard of. And that's the advantage we have here. So there's a lot of initiatives going on, all fueled by this man here. He makes my job a lot easier, but we recognize there is so much need, and we're addressing it. It's a pleasure to work for him. Pleasure to work for y'all.
So he's the one who put together the mayor's conference. We had, how many?
Close to 70.
Mayors from around the district. And we had people there from the State Department of Commerce. We had people there from the federal government. We had people there from the municipal associations.
Several universities.
To talk about what we could do for them. And then he put together an economic development conference at
SAMT at Florence Arts and Tech.
and we had probably 30 or 40 people in economic development around the district. And we had the University of South Carolina Economic Development Group there to talk to them about various state incentives and what we can do to help them. So we are working throughout this district to establish those relationships because as we've learned here in Horry County, we work better when we work together, right? And we got to do that throughout this entire district. So proud to have him on board. Other things we've done locally, we helped get money for the tarmac here at the Myrtle Beach Air Force Base so we can open up some of those aviation jobs. We helped Florence with the Timmonsville water project because they were about to lose Honda because Honda wasn't getting enough water. We have helped with redoing some of the broadcast areas that were getting rerouted. People in Georgetown were being put in the Charleston broadcast area. People in Chesterfield were being put in Charlotte where they wanted to stay in our broadcast area. We've handled any number of federal issues coming along. Nationally, my focus has been on American competitiveness and jobs. When I got there, I learned that Congress, we really don't get together. It's hard to believe, but we don't. Congress, other than going in when they ring the bell to go vote, okay, and you run over there and go vote, you stay there for 30 minutes and then you go. And then sometimes they do that twice a day. But other than that, we don't get together. We've been together at the inauguration, and we were together at the State of the Union. So there really is no back and forth, except in the committees. Early on, I had met a guy named Michael Porter. Michael is an incredibly impressive guy. He's a professor at Harvard. He's got an undergraduate degree in, he's literally a rocket scientist, what they call aeronautics engineering. And then he went on to get a degree in economics and a master's in business and so on and so forth. His family's from Bennettsville, South Carolina. How neat is that? Right here in the district. Brilliant man. And he's a specialist in national competitiveness. He's written 15 books on the subject. He represents countries like Australia, South Korea. He's got a menu on what we need to do to make this country competitive. About 10 items. And he says if we could just make progress on 2 or 3, that our economy would accelerate. And I totally agree with that. So I said we need to get him in front of Congress and educate them about what we need to, why we need to make ourselves competitive, and what we need to do to make ourselves competitive. Same thing we did here in Horry County. Just trying to take, you know, when I went over to county council, I said, why aren't we attracting the same jobs that some of these other areas of the state are? And when we got to look at it, it wasn't that complicated. It's just we weren't in the game. We weren't competing. We got to apply that same logic to the country. You know, why is our tax system not competitive? Why is what is it about our regulatory environment that's screwed? We need to fix it, bring these jobs back instead of watching all these jobs go overseas. So I went to the leadership in Congress and said, we need to get this job here. Will you help me? They said, you just go do it. A lot harder for a freshman congressman to attract a lot of interest from a lot of senior congressmen about something like that. But I did. I tried. I got very little help from leadership. Eric Cannon let me use his conference room one day. There was a fellow here named John Katsanos who I had asked to come up and intern with me. I had him go hand out flyers to 435 congressmen and 100 senators in one day. He was fussing. I did 6 events in 2 days with Michael Porter, got him in front of 80 congressmen. I was very proud of that. When we got done, I mean, that meeting we had in Eric Cantor's office, probably 22 people showed up. Half of them Democrats. 2 or 3 of them came up to me and shook my hand, looked me square in the eye and said, we've never done anything like this before. When I got through, Eric Cantor came to me and said, you need to bring him back. So we're working on scheduling that again in the spring. And I hope instead of 80 this time, it'll be 200. And I hope next year it'll be 300. And if we can educate people, because I'll tell you this, when I go to a group of people who have different political viewpoints than I do, and I say, we need to lower our corporate tax rate so the businesses will come back here, they might cross their arms at me and call me a greedy corporate punk. But when the professor from Harvard gets up there and says the same thing, it says how it really doesn't affect the highly skilled people, it affects the people in the middle. The same people who call me a corporate punk are not their head. So it's really important that we get people educated. I know that people think Congress is dysfunctional, and it is. But you know the truth of it is, that's how the family designed it. That's why they made a House of Representatives, the People's House, answerable to the people every 2 years. That's why they did that. And then they made a separate House, the Senate, that's a little more separated. And the President, everybody has to agree on law. They didn't want it to be easy to pass laws. And right now, the way we've set it up, the people have set it up, one party's in control of one house, the other party's in control of the other 2. And of course, there's not going to be a whole lot of agreement on laws coming through. But really, do you want a whole lot more laws right now?
No, none. Why should we?
The last time one party had the House and the Senate and the presidency was from 2008 to 2010. And out of that came Obamacare and Dodd-Frank. And the regulations for those laws are probably over 50,000 pages. And they absolutely make this country less competitive. And they absolutely hurt, they destroy jobs. So, yes, there is some dysfunction there. Yes, it's hard to get laws to pass. No, gridlock is not necessarily a bad thing. With that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rice.
Yes, sir.
My name is Nick Cosentino. I'm from Little River. And I thank you for what you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
But there's
You
one
heard him right. You heard what he said.
But there's one thing that's missing in all of this.
Yes, sir.
In South Carolina, mental health.
Yes, sir.
They have been taking money away from mental health. There is not a mental health hospital in South Carolina except one, Bryant, only one. When a youngster or an adult, or they didn't know them, come out and lock them up, they go in there every day for treatment. A lot of them need to be committed, but there's no place for them to go. But by law, they have to send them to a regular hospital. Now, regular hospital doesn't have the staff to take care of them. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So what happens? They discharge them. People have nowhere to go. And where do we end up? Detention centers. Because a lot of them are walking around, have nothing to do, walk with a backpack, sleeping on a park bench. Policeman comes along to arrest him for loitering. I did nothing. He needed help. There is now a 5-year waiting list to get into Bryant. No one is looking into that problem. We need help for these people. Sure, we need roads, different things going on, we need jobs. But we need to help these people. There are people. Dogs and cats get taken care of better. And we love our dogs and cats. And they're really taken care of, but not the people.
Is there anybody in the room that disagrees with that? I don't disagree with that. Anybody disagree with that? You've got 100% agreement. Here's the thing, and it's federal investment and it's state investment.
Exactly, and I agree with you. I said that.
I got to go with another question. No, I agree with you. The problem is where's the money going to come from? And right now budgets are shrinking, they're not expanding. And, you know, I think there is going to be some additional federal investment. But my understanding is the mental health beds have dropped by like 75%. And people are ending up in homeless shelters and in jail, like you said. And other people end up hurting people. And it is a horrible problem. And we got to figure out a way to deal with it. But I'll also tell you that with the deficit where it is, people aren't looking to expand spending much on anything. And until we get the economy moving, I don't see a great deal more investment in any of this. And I agree with you. It's something that's got to be dealt with. I agree with you. Everybody here does.
We have to help people first.
I understand. I understand. What I say is we got to have the ability to help them.
I understand that. Thank you.
Who's next? Yes, ma'am.
I'm from Conway. I guess I'm pretty interested in the budget. I'm an accountant also, but anyway.
I knew all like you.
Was there any logic behind the reduction in retirement benefits for people in the service, our veterans? To me, they're the most important people in the country, or we wouldn't have a country.
Okay, let me explain this budget deal best I can.
Thank you.
Okay, what happened was, first place, backdrop that I told you. Okay, we hadn't had a budget, the federal government hadn't had a budget in years. And when the federal government doesn't have a budget, that takes away a lot of Congress's power, because Congress's power is really in the first room. And when you're operating on what they call continuing resolution and not a budget, you're really ceding a lot of the money allocation to the administration. Okay, so Congress needed a budget. The House passes one, the Senate passes one, they don't want to go to conference. They're worried about political points. Finally, we get to that after the shutdown. I went to Paul Ryan and I asked to be on the budget conference committee to help work out the details. And they wouldn't, I'm a freshman, they wouldn't put me on that. So I said, look, I think the economy is poised to accelerate. And one of the problems that we have is this constant turmoil arguing about, you know, the shutdown, this, that, and that. And that we have to lift the clouds of uncertainty if business is going to invest and start hiring people. I said, so we need a deal. Two, if you could make some progress on, I'm thinking about Professor Porter's 10 items. Those 10 items I told you he had. if we can make some progress on entitlement reform and on tax reform, those two things, it doesn't have to be big, little stuff, then I think that is going to really encourage the public, it's going to increase confidence, it's going to so on and so forth. He said we can't do it. I said, why? He said, because the Democrats are going to demand a tax increase. I said, well, I don't want a tax increase either. But I'll tell you this. We didn't win the presidency. And we got people coming out of college right now and high school, and there's nothing for them. And we can't sit here and wait for 3 years and hope we get a Republican president before we do anything. We've got to get something done. So I think you should go in there and get the absolute best deal we can. Well, this is what they came back with. It is a budget for a year and a half. It lists those clouds of uncertainty. It takes this every 3-month catastrophe off the table. It does some entitlement reform. The one thing it does for new hires, I wish it applied to everybody, but for new hires, it increases the amount of money that a federal employee has to contribute to his own pension plan. Because the federal employee's pension plan is a vestige of the 60s, and people don't have pensions like that anymore. They used to, they don't anymore. Military pay, this is one thing I don't like about it. And here's what they did, and this has been misconstrued in the media. They said if you retire before you're 62, then your COLA adjustment will be reduced by 1% per year. When you reach 62, they give it all back. They make it all up. So when you get to be age 62 at retirement age, then you get the full amount from then on. And the theory of that was the same theory that we faced when we were in Wayne County, and we had the health insurance problem. And people had promised these benefits they couldn't pay for them. And we had to do something about it. It was running up to $15 million or whatever. What was the number, Jody? I don't remember.
It was more than that, and it was exponentiating yearly.
To the point that we couldn't pay it. And so we had to do something about it, and we did. Now, I asked Paul, and I said, Paul, what is this? He said, it came from the Department of Defense. He said the employee benefits is taking up so much of their budget that it's affecting their readiness. And they asked us to do something about it. And this is what we came up with. So I don't like that either. But the plain fact is, businesses and governments around this country, and even the United States, have these programs out there that are bankrupting. And we've got to be realistic about it. And this only affects the time period, just like in Wayne County, where they were going to pay for their health insurance from the time they retired after 25 years or whatever the date was until they reached the retirement age. This is the same thing. And they figure they'll be working in that time. They get a 1% reduction in their COLA from 42 to 62, then they make it all up.
That's not explained. There's going to be an awful lot of people that are going against Republicans and Democrats because it's not explained. It's out there blanket. This is what's going to happen. I mean, that's how I took it, and I'm not a dummy.
Yes, ma'am. And people, they only give you a 30-second soundbite, and they don't explain it. And I've been explaining it when I talk to
I
you.
think the word has to get out.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
we're all going to be against it.
And the...
I understand it now, and I understand it's not permanent, but I have to tell you, I would believe the majority doesn't understand it.
I agree with you. Yes, sir. I just want to finish on the budget before we get on that point. This budget we agreed to is an $85 billion deficit reduction over 10 years. A couple of $1 billion the first year, and it gets up to $20 billion. But one thing that they ignore about this budget is because the federal employee pension contribution only applies to new hires, starts at 0, and then as they hire more people, it grows. So after 10 years, these budget savings, this is an entitlement. I mean, not an entitlement. This is a mandatory spending reduction. First one we've done. First one we've done in a long, long, long time. And mandatory spending is going to have to be faced. That's where the real deaths that's coming from. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon again. Thank you for coming, Congressman Rice. Good to see you again. My name is Wilbur Graham, and I'm a Command Sergeant Major, retired U.S. Army, so that I appreciate you answering that question.
Yeah.
Just the thought, though, is 99.9% of the people that retires are under 62 from the military service.
And when they get to be 62,
Then they'll pick up.
they get the makeup.
So thank you for telling me about that. But what I wanted to ask about was I-73. You indicated a few moments ago about jobs. Talking to the local folks here, I understand that when I-73 comes in, it's going to create a lot of jobs. Not only the construction of it, but also what it brings, around it. So can you tell us kind of when that's going to be or how that's going to happen? You have an idea?
Well, I hope to have the permit, which we should have had years ago. I hope to have the permit in the next few months. There's going to be a highway bill come down this spring, and we're going to have to argue for the merit of our road versus the merit of other roads around the country. And is there going to be the money to build the thing all in one shot? I'm seriously about it. Is there going to be money to get started? I hope so. And I'm going to be working hard to do it. I think we were pretty successful in Charleston, Georgetown, with ports. And I hope to have some success with this. When exactly is it going to be built? I don't know. I know that the federal government is not the only player in this. The state's in it, and 40 counties in it, and others. So I think there's hopefully I'll have some good news for you or two off the wall. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Moody Floyd.
Hey, Moody.
We thank you for your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
And you know my interest. Being on the Transportation Committee, and it sounds great about your port and what you plan and trying to do there. I wonder, what is your vision from your agency about bringing transportation into the new millennium in the United States? Also, about what you can do for Horry County, the local government, the state, or any focus or influence you have on the county to be more aggressive to public transportation. There's a lot of talk about jobs, which we need, yes we need, and infrastructure is important, you say. So I never could grasp this. Why is not public transportation apparently not important to the infrastructure, especially in Horry County? Over 62% of the people said they were interested in it. And that was years ago. And we still have a real dogfight about those funding or aggressively getting more to make it better. So I wonder if you were able to do anything about that or have anything in focus on it.
Well, of course, I was, at the same time that referendum passed, was when I was elected as chairman of the county council. And we funded that referendum that the people asked for. And to my knowledge, it's still funded.
But we know it's not dedicated.
Well, I mean, it may not be dedicated to all. I will also tell you, there's huge, what Horry County puts in is a small portion of the operating cost. I mean, the federal government matches it, 3, 4, 5 to 1, something like that. But I'll also tell you that the plain fact is that Horry County is not well suited for public transportation. It's too dispersed, it's too rural, there's not enough concentrations of people in given areas, and so it loses a lot of money. And it's a very hard problem. How you solve it, I don't know. How much money's enough? I mean, if you double the amount of money, it wouldn't be enough. You still wouldn't be able to handle every need of every person. Now, I think they're doing a good job with, I know there's been problems of late. I think they're trying to do a good job with the limited funds they have. But, if the ridership was there to support it, it wouldn't be such a struggle. It's just these very rural areas. Rocky, didn't PD didn't they just lose a big part of theirs?
They lost a great portion of the county, and they went to several municipalities and counties to help alter that. And they've got some money to do this, so it is a public challenge. In the rural counties, how everything's spread out, it's a difficult task.
But jobs we need, yes. So, when you have jobs, you have to get to the jobs.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
the people that, especially over here, the stepchildren, we need to eat. You know, the young people need to get to school. We need to get to the jobs, which is in the tourists over to the beach. And it's hard, I understand that. A rural area, it is hard. But that's why God built people's brain,
Yes, ma'am.
to figure out a way. And that's why the
And I
officials,
think people have used their brain as efficiently as they can to use the limited dollars that are available to create a rudimentary, and it's rudimentary, public transportation network. And I wish we could do better. But again, you know, Horry County's they still putting $1 million a year into it.
Yeah.
And then the federal government matches that 3 or 4 to 1.
and we know it's still not enough. I'm not saying, I've been down that road so long with them,
Yes, ma'am.
with that.
I wish I could wave a magic wand and make another double my amount of money available, but I don't.
But the
I don't see
fact
that.
still remains that we need to try to meet everybody's needs. Not, you know, I mean, no, you can't go door to
And
door
we,
with
and we never
everybody.
will, but we can try, but we never will. We will never will.
Well, I hope that's not the spirit, that we never will.
Well, I
No,
mean,
that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable.
yes, ma'am, in the back.
I want to elaborate on what the Sergeant Major said and this lady. I'm the wife of an injured soldier. And my concerns is that we don't have the resources in this county, in this area, because since the closing of the base, we are a civilian primary community. Although we have Myrtle Beach, Marion, several National Guard units that have deployed numerous times. And the VA system that we have set up at Market Commons is adequate, and they're doing a good job for what they have and the resources that they have. But when you come back in your National Guard or Reserve in this area, you get 2 weeks' pay straight from the field. This is straight from the battlefield. You get 2 weeks' pay, 6 months of insurance, and you're on your own. So that's causing crime to go up. We got a whole generation coming up of PTSD, brain injured soldiers that are waiting 8 months to get into a VA system, falling back on the mental health care through the government. They're getting in trouble, they're getting arrested, they're having issues. This county is not providing. There are some independent organizations that are trying to help. I know the gentleman was back here a minute ago, was trying to help, but this is increasingly becoming an issue in this county. We're also getting some retirees, although I work real estate. I don't know why, because we don't give them the benefits to draw them in this county that North Carolina does.
Who?
Well, I'm talking about like federal retirees and stuff as far as tax benefits and not paying portions of taxes on their retirement incomes and so on. And going back to the budget cut on the pension, I already got a thing to sign a petition against Congress and sent it this morning in my email because they don't understand. I understand now that you said it, but it's not being explained properly. And my thing is, it's taken 2 years in the system to get paid from the VA.